If you assume that darkness is just an automatic thing in most people's lives, then you don't miss an opportunity to bring the light into their lives. At the end of the day, you know, there's a lot of media that is just fear mongering because if it bleeds, it reads. And, there are many products that are just, trying to wail on the pain point enough to get you to buy the product, but it's a one off. It doesn't actually care if it works or not. And, at times teaching is the same thing. It's ego driven, if you will, level 4 leadership from Good to Great by Jim Collins versus level 5 leadership, which is about humility and it's about service and it's about helping the person in front of you or helping your organization grow even when you're gone. In many ways, leaving a legacy. And if you operate from that space every day and get a chance to make a difference, you will leave a legacy wherever you go. And it's being that light for other people that allows you to really tap into the light inside of you as well. And if you're listening to this, you're someone who brings light to other people's lives. You're a leader. And it's just understanding that, that brightness that you can bring can either, dim away, or it can light 1,000 light bulbs. It can light 1,000 fires just by simply being you, by existing, smiling, making that difference, and making the world a better place. And that's really important to understand is just show up, really be the light that people can be drawn to. And part of illumination is also helping empower them to find the light within themselves. All of us have it. For some of us, it's dimmer than others because in many ways it's been beaten down. We could use a language of trying to be extinguished. And those are the things that can get in the way of just enjoying the view, of enjoying the joy of getting a chance to enjoy the fact that we as a human species are on this rock and have built technology that we can communicate across this rock to each other. And, less than 100 years ago, we were salting our food because we didn't have refrigerators. And now we're sitting here and, it's kind of funny to think about the fact, obviously the illness isn't an issue, but the fact that now in many ways diabetes or heart disease, leading killers using food, right? And it's important to think about those facts and have perspective to say, wait a second, like at one point we were more worried and there are parts of the world that are still extremely worried about starvation. But many of our needs are being met and also not met when you look at globally, but if you look at it from a species point of view, our evolution has been so powerful in so many ways, and understanding that, our main focus, our sole focus every day should be bringing the light. There's darkness that exists, and you could argue that darkness ends up being created or showing up because of entropy, of basically we're moving more and more away from order. But then on the other side, you have self-emergence. So you think that everything is being destroyed. No. But on the other side, you have self-emergence. That means that things are coming up from that entropy. And you don't have to choose a side. You kind of do, but in the sense of you already have inclinations. It's just more disinhibition. You're basically saying, hey, you know what? I'm not letting that voice get in the way. Or the other thing, the funny thing, and no one talks about this, is if you want to get rid of a voice, you just don't have it anymore. Right? It's kind of like ending a phone call. You're like, I've ended that phone call. I'm moving on to the next thing. And so that's that idea of disinhibition, to allow your light to occur. Just to let it occur. And it's kind of like you just leave the other option completely gone. It's not like this, I have to cut away, although you talk about it in decisions, right? You cut away from to, in this case, it's almost as if it didn't exist in the first place. And I think operating from that space is very powerful, and it's a very powerful nuance to understand. To cut something away, it existed. Because you had to cut it away, you had to prune it away. But you can't cut something away that was never there to begin with. It doesn't exist. And I think that is the highest form of apathy, of effectively choosing selective both ignorance and then effectively erasing your mind of anything that is there that takes you away from your authentic self presenting itself to the world. And part of authenticity is just, you're like, this is just how I show up. It's kind of non-negotiable. It's kind of weird that people even ask you to negotiate it at times. Now, that doesn't mean that you have really bad social skills. No, not at all. It just means that you're doing the thing that you're doing. And you're meeting the purpose of your soul. You're doing the thing that maybe you're born to do, maybe you're gifted to do, or maybe you're called to do. Maybe it's just an inkling that's pulling you. And that's the powerful part. I think a lot of times we try to figure out what we're going to do with our lives without actually just listening to our lives. You know, a lot of our life is telling us in between the actions is the answers. But too many times we're trying to force it to be something when it's not, or we're trying to force the answers to show up when it's convenient for us instead of convenient for life. Instead of taking a pause, taking a step back and saying, you know what, life is talking to me here. I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to move with it. I'm going to grow with it. I'm going to contract with it. Because part of growth is also being able to come inside and say, wow, you know, I messed this up, or wow, you know what, I did this well. And this is so different from what I thought I would do. And just focusing in on that and relaxing with that. And sometimes contracting with that, right? Sometimes there are things that you need to be tense about. I think the beauty of life is feeling the storm of emotions. And it could be a colorful storm, it could be a beautiful storm, it could be a powerful storm, it could be waves of storms. But none of it anymore is really about you, which is esoteric. But basically, the idea is allow yourself to emerge, allow yourself to, you know, be you without being you. Which means, what does that mean? What does it mean to be you without being you? There's an undiscovered part of yourself that has been seeping out, that has been knocking on the door of your soul, on the windows, of tapping on it like rain. And it's just saying like, hey man, this is who you really are. Versus what other people are telling you you are. When you come from that space, you're light. In many ways, you're enlightened. There's nothing you cannot do because it's within you. But it also takes such a deep level of strength to do that work. Simply because what your mind's eye or what your inner eye is saying can be diametrically opposite to everything in front of you, that you almost have to become beautifully illustrative and delusional in the illusions that you're creating, that you're imagining to turn into reality. And that's the most powerful piece, to go, basically what you're seeing in front of your own eyes, right? And your eyes that are looking at reality, quote unquote, objectively, you look and you're like, wait a second, this isn't as objective as I thought it was. Because you look inside and you can feel it. You're like, wait, I know I can do that, or I can do this. And then you watch yourself execute it and you watch that soul work happen. And you're like, this is different. This is new. And that kind of, some people might call it spiritual strength. Other people might say strength of character. It doesn't matter what you call it, because you feel it. And when you feel that, and when you have that, we've all felt glimpses of it, but training it and using it over and over again and allowing that to guide you, it is unstoppable. You become an unstoppable force because you've tapped into something much greater than you, much bigger than you, much more powerful than you, much more kinder, caring, assiduous, aggressive, and just plain weird. Weird in the sense that once you tap into that power, you realize that it doesn't matter what language we have, it is imperfect to talk about the things that we have inside of us. And as humanity continues to progress, we will begin to understand it further as we go. But it does not mean that we stop. It does not mean that we stop the power that we have. And so with that, go forth, be the light, and understand that at times, out of darkness comes the light, and out of light comes darkness. But they're both part of the journey moving forward. And that's all you need to know. Is at the end of the day, they're both dovetailing towards emergence and the creation of you, and also the dismantling of you. And that's okay, because that's the evolution.